The evening heat dripped through the crowded streets of Lagos like honey, slow and heavy, as the city danced with its usual madness, cars honking, sellers shouting, the smell of roasted corn and petrol mixing in the air. In a corner of the market, 19-year-old Ao balanced her cracked phone on a pile of plastic crates, fixing her braids and whispering to herself, "This one will go viral." Her best friend Zara stood a few feet away, shaking her head, the last orange glow of sunset brushing her face. "You and these TikTok challenges again," she said. Ao grinned, her teeth catching the dying light. "This one's called the Shadow Dance. It started in Kenya. No one's done it here yet." Zara frowned, sensing something uneasy in Ao's excitement. "Why's it called that?" she asked. Ao shrugged, already pressing record. The music began, deep, heavy drums, with a haunting echo that seemed to come from beneath the earth. She started to move, her body flowing like a spirit caught in rhythm. The phone light flickered on and off, just as the challenge required, and with every flash of light, her shadow stretched longer, darker, more alive. Then, during one flicker, something strange happened. The shadow moved before she did. Ao froze, her chest tight, her hand trembling. She turned around quickly. No one there. The alley was empty, except for the whisper of wind and the buzz of distant generators. Laughing nervously, she shook it off and finished the dance. When she watched the video later that night, she saw it clearly behind her. In one of the flickers was a second figure, not quite her, not quite human. Its head tilted at an impossible angle, its limbs bending wrong. The comments came fast. "Bro, that's not a filter," one wrote. "Pause at 013, another said. "You'll see it move before she does." Within hours, the clip had gone viral. Thousands of likes, followers, and reposts poured in. Ao couldn't sleep, her phone buzzing all night. When morning came, her reflection in the screen seemed off. Her eyes looked duller, her smile slightly crooked, as if someone else was watching from beneath her skin. Zara noticed it first. "You look tired," she said, worried. "You should delete that video." But Ao only smiled faintly. "It's just a challenge," she whispered, though her voice sounded distant. "There's another level." Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance, and as she lifted her phone again, something in the reflection smiled back, something darker, hungrier, patient. By the next week, the Shadow Dance had swept through social media like wildfire. Teenagers from Ghana, Kenya, and South Africa began posting their own versions, each one darker than the last, each one featuring shadows that didn't quite match their movements. News outlets laughed it off, calling it Africa's creepiest new trend, while influencers competed to perfect it. But in Lagos, Ao no longer laughed. Her room felt heavier every night, her phone growing colder in her hand. When she scrolled through the endless videos, she noticed something terrifying. In every clip, the shadows were becoming clearer, more detailed, as if learning. One girl in Nairobi disappeared the day after posting hers. A boy in Accra posted his dance and was found unconscious hours later, mumbling something about voices in the dark. Ao tried to ignore it, tried to sleep, but the music from her first video kept playing faintly from her phone, even when it was off. Zara came over one evening, the power gone again, the room lit only by candlelight. "You need to stop," she said softly. "This isn't normal anymore." But Ao just stared into her phone, the camera already open, the record button glowing red. "It wants me to finish," she whispered. Zara froze. What are you talking about?" Ao blinked slowly, her pupils wide like a predator's. "The shadow. It said there's one more level. It promised everyone will see me." The air in the room shifted, thick with something unseen. Zara snatched the phone and threw it across the floor. But the screen didn't crack. Instead, it flickered on, showing a reflection not of the room, but of a dark forest, wet with fog. From the phone's speaker came the faint sound of drums. Then, a voice whispering Ao's name, low and drawn out, like the hiss of wind through broken glass. Zara screamed, slamming her hand over the phone, but the sound only grew louder. Ao walked forward slowly, her face half in shadow, eyes distant. "Do you hear it?" she said. "It's calling us." The candle suddenly went out, leaving them in total darkness. The phone light flashed once, twice, and for a moment, Zara saw dozens of silhouettes moving on the walls, dancing out of sync, their limbs bending backward. Then silence. When the light returned, Ao was gone. The phone lay on the floor, still recording, its camera facing an empty corner where something invisible breathed softly, waiting. By morning, Zara uploaded the video, her hands trembling. She titled it The Final Level Lagos version. It went viral in 3 hours. No one noticed the faint reflection in her eyes, a second face smiling from the inside. Across Africa, the Shadow Challenge turned from entertainment into obsession. Kids performed it in alleyways, markets, classrooms, and even graveyards, daring each other to film longer versions. Some claimed they heard whispers in the dark. Others said their reflections smiled back seconds after they stopped moving. In Lagos, Zara hadn't slept for 3 nights. Since Ao vanished, strange things followed her. Her phone turning on by itself, faint drumming echoing from empty streets. Desperate for answers, she visited Mama Ifema, an old spiritual healer who lived near the edge of Makoko Lagoon. The woman's home smelled of herbs and rain, its walls lined with charms made of shells and feathers. When Zara told her about the shadow dance, Mama Ifema's eyes grew wide. "It is not a game, child," she whispered. "It is an invocation." She pulled a tattered book from under a basket, its pages yellowed by time. Long before TikTok, before electricity, there was a spirit called Aboyu, the Mirror King. He lived in reflections, feeding on those who loved their own image too much. Every century, he finds a new way to cross over. Zara's hands shook as she realized what that meant. "He's using the cameras," she said quietly. The old woman nodded. "Every flash of light, every screen that shows your face, it opens a door." Outside, thunder cracked, and the candles in the room trembled. Mama Ifema began chanting softly, sprinkling salt in a circle around the phone. "Do not record, do not watch," she warned. But the device buzzed violently, lighting up on its own. On the screen, Ao's face appeared pale, smiling, her voice distant. "Zara," she said, "come dance with me." The phone's light pulsed in rhythm with invisible drums, and the air turned icy. Mama Ifema grabbed the phone, hurling it into a bowl of water, steam hissing as if flesh had burned. The screen went black, but Ao's laughter lingered in the air like smoke. "It's too late," the old woman gasped, clutching her chest. "Once the dance begins, It must finish, or it will never stop. Zara fled into the storm, her heart pounding, rain slicing across her face. Every puddle she passed shimmered with faint movements, shadows reaching toward her ankles. When she reached home, she found her own phone recording again, though she hadn't touched it. On the screen, a live video had already started, thousands watching, commenting, sending hearts. The caption read, "Lagos Shadow Dance, Final Round." And there she was, inside the frame, staring at herself, her body moving to music she couldn't hear. The reflection smiled first, then she felt her limbs follow. By the following night, Lagos had changed in subtle, terrifying ways. Streets seemed narrower, shadows longer, and the hum of electricity carried a strange undertone, like whispers just out of hearing. Zara wandered through her neighborhood, drenched from the storm that had not stopped since Ao disappeared. Every puddle reflecting faces that weren't hers, eyes blinking where none should have been. She clutched her old phone, the only device that hadn't yet been possessed, and began retracing Mama Ifeama's steps, chanting protective prayers under her breath, salt sprinkling like tiny stars along the sidewalk. The videos on social media multiplied with an unnatural speed. Thousands of followers now glued to live feeds of children dancing in darkness, bending in impossible angles, laughing when no one else was near. Zara could feel it, the presence of Aboyu, the Mirror King, growing stronger, feeding on every reflection, every heartbeat of attention. That night, she returned to the abandoned rooftop where she had filmed her first attempt at helping Ao, hoping that being outside might weaken the spirit's grip. The wind howled, carrying distant drums that synced perfectly with her racing pulse. And then she saw it, a figure standing at the edge of the roof, impossibly tall, its limbs elongated, its face a shifting mask that mirrored everyone she had ever loved and feared, its eyes dark pools of hunger. Zara froze. The Mirror King had crossed over. Its voice slithered around her, smooth and melodic, yet venomous. "Dance with me, or the world will watch without end." She shook her head, but her reflection in the puddles began moving independently, stepping closer, arms rising to mimic the impossible dance. Panic surged, and she remembered Mama Ifeama's warning, "Once the dance begins, it must finish or it will never stop." Gathering every ounce of courage, Zara closed her eyes and whispered the old chants, spinning in a circle to create her own protective seal in the air. Salt flying, candles ignited magically on the ground, as if drawn by her will. The Mirror King recoiled, a scream like breaking glass ripping through the night, shattering reflections across the city. But it wasn't gone. In the nearest shop window, Zara saw Ao's face, smiling faintly, beckoning. Her limbs trembled involuntarily, her body aching to move, to join the dance. And she realized the terrible truth. Aboyu didn't just live in shadows. He thrived in hesitation, in curiosity, in the obsession of being watched. Every glance, every click, every heartbeat recorded by a camera fed him more strength. Heart hammering, Zara lunged at her phone, smashing it against the concrete. The device shattered, and for a moment, silence fell. The wind stopped. The city seemed to hold its breath. Then the faint sound of drums returned, quieter now, almost distant, leaving Zara staring into a puddle that reflected only her own terrified face. By the time the sun rose over Lagos, the city seemed almost alien. The air was thick, heavy with a damp, metallic scent, and even familiar streets felt unfamiliar. Shadows stretching where none should have been, moving independently of any source of light. News spread quickly. Strange phenomena were appearing in neighboring cities: Abuja, Accra, Nairobi. Children and teenagers vanishing mid-TikTok video. Phones turning against their owners. Reflections in mirrors and puddles, no longer matching reality. Zara, now desperate and sleep-deprived, scoured the city for survivors, clutching scraps of Mama Ifuma's ancient teachings. Realizing that the shadow dance wasn't just a curse, it was evolving, growing stronger with every view, every recorded heartbeat, and every share. She watched the live streams cautiously, horrified as shadows began reaching out from screens, pulling themselves into rooms, crawling along walls, stretching impossibly to envelop anyone foolish enough to record themselves. The Mirror King, Abo, was no longer confined to one body or place. He was everywhere at once, a network of darkness, thriving on attention, each reflection now a potential doorway. Zara stumbled into a small, abandoned market, the faint smell of roasted corn mingling with ozone from broken streetlights, and saw them dozens of figures frozen mid-dance, shadows contorting violently, faces twisted with silent screams, their eyes reflecting her own fear. She realized the only way to stop him was to interrupt the cycle, to prevent anyone else from sharing the videos, but every attempt seemed futile. The videos multiplied faster than they could be deleted, followers skyrocketing, each click feeding the Mirror King more energy, his whispers growing louder, speaking directly into her mind. Dance. Let them watch. Forever. Her hands shook, heart pounding as she forced herself to close her eyes, chanting Mama Ifuma's words with trembling voice, salt scattering like starlight across the cracked concrete. The shadows quivered, some retreating slightly, but then more appeared from every reflective surface, from every screen she passed. Even the sky seemed darker, as if the sun itself was being swallowed. Zara realized she couldn't fight this alone. She needed Ao, somehow trapped within the network of reflections, her soul caught in the dance. Summoning all her courage, she lifted a broken mirror she had carried from Mama Ifuma's hut, throwing it toward the largest puddle, shattering its surface. The water rippled violently, and for a brief moment, thousands of shadowy figures paused, halted mid-motion, and the Mirror King hissed in rage. A sound like hundreds of broken mirrors crashing together. Zara staggered back, realizing this was only temporary. The curse had multiplied beyond Lagos, beyond Nigeria, and now every phone, every mirror, every reflective surface had become a battlefield. And somewhere deep in her mind, Ao's faint voice called to her, whispering, warning, begging, as if trapped between the world of the living and the kingdom of Abo. Night had fallen over Lagos like a suffocating blanket, the city quiet except for the faint hum of electricity and the occasional drip of rain from broken rooftops. But Zara could feel the pulse of the Mirror King everywhere, a living, watching presence that had turned the familiar streets into a maze of shadows and reflections, armed only with fragments of Mama Ifuma's protective chants, a circle of salt, and a small hand-held mirror. She navigated alleys where puddles shimmered unnaturally, showing not her reflection, but dozens of ghostly faces frozen mid-dance, eyes wide, mouths smiling in silent terror. Every corner she turned, she felt Aboyu's gaze, the whispers in her mind urging her to stop, to join the dance, to submit to the countless views and endless followers that had fed him for days. She reached the abandoned rooftop where Ao had vanished, and the air thickened, vibrating with unseen drums, a low pulse that matched her racing heartbeat. From the shadows, Io appeared, her skin pale, eyes glazed, moving in jerky, unnatural rhythm, every step perfectly mimicked by the Mirror King himself, a colossal shadow behind her that stretched and twisted. "It's too late," Ao's voice echoed, mechanical and distant, yet filled with sorrow. Zara shook her head, forcing herself to stand within the protective circle, salt sprinkling around her feet as the wind swirled violently, tearing at her hair and clothes. The Mirror King loomed larger, its countless faces writhing across walls, puddles, and even the broken glass shards scattered at Zara's feet, its whispers merging into one, demanding obedience. Summoning every ounce of courage, Zara lifted the small mirror toward the creature, chanting the strongest incantations Mama Ifama had given her, willing her fear into defiance. The mirror light glowed, catching every reflection in the rooftop puddles, every phone screen in the city below, every tiny shard of glass, and for a heartbeat, Aboyu recoiled, a screeching howl of frustration and rage that made the very air vibrate. Ao stepped forward, her body finally free of the king's control, and together they shattered the mirror with one synchronized strike, sending shards scattering across the rooftop. In that instant, the shadows recoiled violently, thousands of figures pausing mid-motion, the city's reflections shivering and then returning to normal, the haunting drums fading into silence. Rain began to fall steadily, washing away the salt, but the city was free for now. Ao collapsed into Zara's arms, weak but alive, her eyes clearing, while the rooftop seemed to breathe again, ordinary once more. But as Zara turned to leave, her phone buzzed. A notification, a new video had gone live somewhere. Thousands watching, the title glowing on the screen, The Shadow Dance, Level 1. She stared, heart pounding, realizing that while the Mirror King had been pushed back, the danger wasn't gone. He only waited for the next curious soul, the next screen, the next heartbeat, willing to join the dance. And somewhere, deep in the city's reflective surfaces, a faint ripple of movement whispered, patient and hungry, as though nothing had truly ended.